The United Nations Secretary General has called for a wall in united peace as Ramadan and Easter Passover coincides. Mediamatic trains media personnel from community radios in the North Bank and Lower River regions on gender-based violence and related issues. And Afghanistan, the Taliban rulers have recently imposed a ban denying women Afghanistan employees of United Nations working in the country. Well, this and more coming your way on The World Today. Welcome. If you are just joining us, this is Eyeafrica TV and you are watching The World Today News Bulletin coming to you live from our studios in Banjul. I am Amadou Kante and now the news in detail. Now, as Ramadan, Passover and Easter coincide this month, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said this is the moment for people to all unite for peace. The UN chief also calls for those that believe in God in different ways, with different expressions, to join their voices in the common prayer for peace. Yahya Jammeh has more details of that in this report.
The United Nations chief started a Ramadan solidarity visit tradition many years ago when he was the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. Every year, he went to a country with refugee camps or with refugee settlements. He stayed there for a certain amount of time, fasting with the communities to respect the tradition and the religious values of the people. After becoming the Secretary General of the United Nations, Guterres kept the tradition, not only focusing on refugee communities, but also focusing on the Muslim communities that are suffering. Reflecting on the visits, Guterres explains his experience with refugees about peace and solidarity.
The sense of peace, the sense of solidarity, the sense of generosity that I witnessed in the communities hosting refugees, and also the resilience, the courage of the refugees themselves was extremely inspiring, and it remains a very important inspiration of everything I do today as Secretary General of the United Nations. During the past few years, the Ramadan Solidarity Visits tradition took the UN chief to Mali, Afghanistan, Christchurch, Senegal, Niger, and many more places. Ramadan is the moment where we should think about what we are doing and think about how necessary it is to bring peace to the world, how necessary it is to bring solidarity to the world, to fight inequalities, to create conditions for the cohesion of societies, for minorities to be respected, for migrants and refugees to be respected, and for people to understand that we are all together in the same world, and independently of our religious belief. Next week, Guterres is heading to Somalia, which is still teetering on the brink of full-scale famine, according to UN humanitarians, with nearly half of the population, some 8.25 million, in need of life-saving assistance or protection. Around 1.8 million children are severely malnourished, and around 8 million people there lack access to adequate water, sanitation, and hygiene facilities. Increasingly extreme weather has seen both prolonged drought and devastating flooding, a consequence of accelerating climate change, at the moment when extremist militants from Al-Shabaab continue to wage a deadly terror campaign. Reporting for Eyeafrica News, I am Yahya Jammeh.
And back to matters here in the African continent, because Ghana's central bank was forced to halt plans to introduce a digital currency amid the poor state of the country's economy. Now, as the West African nations work with IMF for a bailout package, some analysts observe that it may not be an ideal moment to roll out the new currency in the country's economy. Now, despite the introduction of the digital currency in Nigeria, it is, however, not clear how soon a similar development will take place in neighboring Ghana. Let's have more details of that in this report.
Ghana's economy largely relies on cash transactions, but the introduction of mobile money by telecommunications companies is now widely accepted. So the central bank piloted a digital currency the ECD in 2021 and planned to launch it in 2022, but officials say they've had to halt the rollout of the digital currency due to Ghana's struggling economy. Some analysts agree it may not be the best time to introduce the ECD into Ghana's economy as the government tries to secure an IMF bailout, but they believe it would have boosted financial inclusion.
With the introduction of the electronic currency, it's easier to undertake some of these transactions online without receiving the hard currency. It also makes our currency, the value of the currency strong and durable and all that. And we're able to transact business internationally.
Nigeria has already rolled out its digital currency, becoming the first country to do so in Africa. But its implementation has yet to achieve the desired results. Analysts believe Ghana's central bank still has a chance to roll out the ECD in the future.
Once the feasibility study has been done and it's proven that it is feasible, it is possible, they'll come after 2 years. Probably when we are out of the IMF agreement, we'll come back and then continue with the program.
Ghana hopes to secure a $3 billion IMF loan in April to help the economy recover.
For now, it is unclear when the central bank will launch the ECD, but authorities hope when Ghana's economy stabilizes, it could spur a smooth takeoff of the digital currency.
And that economic-related report is coming from the Ghanaian capital, Accra. Back home here, through funding from the United Nations Trust Fund and, of course, UNFPA, Mediamatic recently concluded a 5-day capacity building program for community radios in the North Bank and Lower River region on gender-based violence, FGM, child marriage, women leadership, participation, and ethical reporting. Now, according to the organizers, the project is inspired by the effects of the Senegambia Bridge on how people, especially vendors at the crossing points, have lost their jobs since the bridge was constructed. Here's more of that in this report.
These radio personnel and other local groups have gone through rigorous 5-day training on issues of gender-based violence, child marriage, and women's leadership participation. They were also trained in effective reporting on survivors of gender-based violence with a view to further sensitizing the masses on the different thematic issues. The project program coordinator Mamadou Mokhtar Jallo believes that the community radios are the right channel for the effective communication on the pertinent issues affecting people's lives. He gives an insight in the aspect of the implemented project.
We are doing here today, these few days that we are here, is actually train community radios of North Bank region, where we have all the radio stations of North Bank from Nyomi all the way to Farafenye, as well as the radio stations of Lower River region, that is Soma community radio. That is the only one we have in LRR. And as a result, we are actually adding on the Kanyaleng group of Kanikunda. These, we believe, that the best or the most effective ways of transferring information or reaching the last person in the community. Because the Kanyaleng, as we know, they're very influential, but also they're very creative in the way they send their messages across the board to ensure that everybody knows what exactly we are trying to talk about. Also encourage the reporting of gender-based violence, as well as give a broader perspective.
Mr. Jal also explains some of the thematic areas used in training the radio personnel on the different outlined topics. According to him, a follow-up assessment will be conducted by having live radio shows on the issues.
A phase one of it. The phase one is to capacitize these people, because after the Ramadan, we are also going back to their community radios. That is phase 2, where we're going to engage them, where they're going to conduct live programs on their respective radios, from Nyomi, Kerawan, Soma Community Radio, Farafenye Community Radio, Paradise FM in Farafenye. Each one of these radio stations, we will capacitize. We are going to make sure that we buy airtime on their radio stations, where they are going to engage the community members themselves on all of these issues we talked about. How the community can actually better broaden their understanding on these issues, and how they should know that these things affect themselves, affect their communities, the socio-economic development of the country at large. Very grateful to United Nations Trust Fund for Human Security. So
the 5-day training avails the participants the opportunity to go on rigorous training on FGM, child marriage, women's leadership participation, ethics, and effective ways of reporting these issues. They were as well capacitated on how to produce live shows and other related programs. Reporting for Eyeafrica News, I am Yahya Jammeh. And
you are watching the World Today News Bulletin on Eyeafrica TV, coming to you live from our studios in Banjul. And from that report there by Yahya Jammeh, we now take a break and come back shortly.
TAF Africa Global has successfully sold out the TAF Tulip Gardens Phase 1 finished fence and gated service plots in Gambia. Now selling finished fence and gated service plots at the TAF Tulip Gardens Phase 2 in Gambia, ranging in sizes from 250 meters square to 500 meters square, with all the unique exceptional features that you can't live without. We offer flexible payment plans, a 10-year mortgage plan with a 25% equity down payment in partnership with GT Bank, Trust Bank and EcoBank. For more information on any of our current and future developments, please call +220 776 2333 or 376 2333, or visit our office at Madiba Mall at TAF Bluefoot Gardens Estate, opposite 5-Star Hotel.
Welcome back. This is Eyeafrica TV, and you are watching the World Today News Bulletin. And once again, many thanks for joining us. Let's now look at the rest of the stories. Now, Afghanistan's Taliban rulers banned female Afghan employees of the United Nations from working in the country, putting millions of vulnerable households that relied on the global body's humanitarian operation at additional risk. Now, the United Nations confirmed the ban that its mission in Afghanistan received word of an order by the de facto authorities that bans female national staff members of the United Nations from working. And here's more details of that in this report again by Yahya Jammeh.
Barring women from working for the United Nations was just the latest move by the Taliban to undermine humanitarian organizations' capacity to carry out vital aid work in the country, which was plunged into a grave humanitarian crisis after the Islamic extremist group retook control in the summer of 2021. Some local political analysis says the banning of Afghan women from working for the UN likely came straight from the Taliban supreme leader, who wants to concentrate power and weaken the elements of the Taliban, which will want to get closer to the world community. Speaking to journalists on Tuesday in New York, the spokesperson for the Secretary General Stephane Dujarric said the UN is assessing the consequences the ban may have on their operations and as well see how they can have a dialogue with the Taliban on the issue.
It goes without saying, but unfortunately it does need saying, that female staff members are essential for the United Nations to deliver life-saving assistance. Such orders, as we saw today, not only violate the fundamental rights of women and infringe upon the principles of non-discrimination. Female staff members are essential to ensure the continuation of the UN operations on the ground in Afghanistan.
The UN spokesperson said almost 3/4 of the UN staff in Afghanistan are local. He adds that they need more women to give aid to their fellow women.
Out of a population of about 40 million people in Afghanistan, we're trying to reach 23 million men, women, and children with humanitarian aid. What is clear is that we cannot do it without women. Right? The women are the backbone of our humanitarian operations there. We have almost 4,000 staff members. About 3,300 of those are local national staff. I'm trying to get a gender breakdown, but obviously, given the society and the culture, you need women to deliver aid to women. So we will continue to pursue all avenues to ensure that we can reach the most vulnerable people especially women and girls.
Meanwhile,
well, viewers, we apologize for that technical hiccups there. But of course, from that, we will now move on to our final story now, because several African countries, or several countries that are in the Horn of Africa, continue to face severe effects of climate change, which have been affecting people's livelihood. Somalia is one of the hardest hit countries, where over 1 million people are said to have internally displaced due to the long drought that hit the country, leaving regional authorities worried about the situation. Now, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, ICAD, is now initiated measures to remedy the prevailing climate change challenges. Here's more details of that in this report.
Is a familiar experience across several countries in the Horn of Africa. Experts worry that extreme weather conditions are threatening people's livelihood.
We have different patterns of weather now. In some areas we find that rain is delayed. In some areas we have rains that have reduced so much, and in some areas the seasons have changed completely. So when this happens, what we are seeing is that most of the households in these communities are getting more food insecure.
According to the United Nations, the situation is dire in Somalia. Over 1.3 million people have been internally displaced by drought, and it's causing worry among regional leaders.
We have drought now in 3 countries, in Kenya, in Somalia, and Ethiopia. A lot of cattle are dying. That is an issue of climate issue that we always talk.
The effects of climate change are also forcing people to migrate in search of food and water.
According to weather experts, the Horn of Africa is facing its 6th failed rainy season. They worry that if nothing is done to reverse the effects of climate change, more people could be displaced.
The regional body, ICAD, is now pushing for new solutions.
We have established an office here in Uganda, which is supported by $25 million project by the World Bank, which will help all the region, studying the challenges that the region is facing.
And as a way of scaling up risk reduction measures, climate change activists are urging African countries to minimize dependence on fossil fuels and focus more on renewable energy sources. The hope is these and many other interventions could make the Horn of Africa a better place to live with enough food for everyone.
And that climate change-related report there coming from the Ugandan capital, Kampala, now bring us to the end of this news edition. But for more details on this and other stories, as always, as ever, you can visit on our website on Eyeafrica.tv. But for now, many thanks for the pleasure of your company. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and do have a pleasant evening. Bye for now.